From So Street Studios in the city of Merribeck. Many faces, one Merribeck. Hot Whoppers Appreciation Society proudly presents Salty and the Champ. Featuring Ned Saltman Chobson and Dave the People's Champ Erickson. Me, I am the announcer of the podcast, Miguel Gonzalez. Thank you for listening today. Now, over to you, Salty and the Champ.
All right, we're doing this.
We are.
Okay. Welcome to Salty and the Champ, the real one. No longer am I having to do the impression.
Now you've got the real deal.
The real deal.
Live.
Say hello.
Hello.
There it is. Well, I'm sure we're going to make the day of a few people at least.
Yeah, for sure. It's good to bring people out.
Just showing everybody around. We're in the studios here at Shaw Street. Let me just get the audio down, make sure that doesn't come through on our lines. And here is the setup. We got the sign, the LED sign. Not bad.
Sign.
Got that laser cut at work. We got our cameras. That was me. And here I've got these as well. There's the Sting, Dave the People's Champ Erickson. And back to me, this is Ned the Salt Man Jobson. That's who you're dealing with over here. And I hope, I hope they're in for a treat, to be honest, because I haven't done this for a long time, podcasting.
I've never done it.
And you've never done it.
Anything could happen.
I hope, yeah, as I said, I hope it's good times. Technically as well. Just, a fresh approach here. Yeah, as I said to you before, Dave, the computer crashed before, so I'm hoping we don't lose anything. Gone to a bit of effort here to set it all up.
Done a great job.
Thanks very much. Thank you.
Bit of merch.
Yeah, got the merch happening. Again, just taking advantage of all the facilities I've got at work, so that's what's helped me out quite a bit. I'm going to try and I wish I had an editor or someone here to help control this stuff, because I feel like I'm going to forget to switch between our cameras and have it linger on one of us a little bit too long. So let me just try and get a few in here, and I'll shorten that fade as well. So yeah, I'll go back to the multicam. At least if it's on that, I don't have to worry.
Yep.
So how you doing? You all right?
I'm good. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
You happy with everything?
In terms of what, like the setup here?
We'll start with just the setup. Start
plans,
with things that I can sort of we can manage.
I think it's good. Very professional.
Thank you.
Yeah. I'm quite impressed. I think you've done a great job.
Thank you very much. I have got the large, I think it's like 1 point something liter tumbler.
What are you running in there? Bit of lime cordial?
No, this is you'll be interested in Aldi brand Zero Cola. It's not bad. It's all right. It's no Coke Zero, but it does the job.
Nothing is. Yeah.
I need a little bit of caffeine just to stay awake here. Don't want to be yawning.
Yep.
Want to keep the energy levels up.
That's right.
Yeah. Did you want to? You don't have a drink. Do you have a drink? Do you need a drink?
No, I'm good. I'm good. Yeah. I just finished off a can about 10 minutes ago.
There you go.
Yeah.
If you get
my dinner
thirsty
can
later, got the fridge over there.
Excellent.
And we'll pause the pod, and you can sort yourself out.
Sounds good.
Okay. I think everything's going okay so far. We are recording. We're about 4.5 minutes in. Everything's looking good on the audio there.
Yep.
We got good levels. Looks like one's a bit too loud, but we can fix that if they're on 2 separate channels.
Yep.
That's okay. You got your agenda there.
I do. Yeah. You've a few interesting topics here that I think some of the people who listen to this will be quite interested in.
We're doing this for an audience of about 10 or so.
Yeah.
Which is cool. Like an audience of 1 is cool as long as you're improving, the life or the lives of those around you. I think it's worthwhile. It's a worthwhile endeavor.
Absolutely.
Just having a bit of fun.
Yeah.
My partner Tao came in before, and I had the agenda on the desk, and she's like, inquisitively looked, and I'm like, I'm not going to shy away from that. I'm proud of that agenda. It is what it is, and but I've told her, like, she saw the sign. She saw the signs. She saw everything. She saw the setup, and I'm like, this is just a bit of fun, and this is all it has to be.
Do you reckon she makes her think you're more or less of a footy nuffy than what she previously thought?
Probably a little bit more.
Yeah.
Yeah, she doesn't like footy at all.
Right. Yeah.
Gives me a hard time when I'm watching it.
Yeah.
And yeah, isn't doesn't see the positives in it.
Yeah.
I think only sees the negatives in it.
Yep.
But that's okay.
I get that. Yeah.
It is what it is.
Yep.
But when when where and that's the Bombers, where when we're good again, when we're winning again, and when that day comes, when we're back in the finals and winning, and maybe even winning a grand final, and she sees the joy it brings me, the sheer joy it brings me, I think that's when she'll know how much of a real nuffy I am. But until then, yeah. Just
if that ever happens,
it might happen.
Yeah,
I'm a realist about it, but it'll happen whether it's in the immediate future or in the far distant future.
Yeah.
I'm sure we're still going to be together, first of all.
Yeah.
And
maybe like AI sort of Terminator bots playing footy by then.
Perhaps. And speaking of, I don't know if I've introduced on camera. Nice segue here. We've got little Termy.
Hawks. Yeah, Termy.
Little Termy Broden. Termy Broden, I actually called him Little Termy on the scene there. And over on my side, Little Heisenberg. He's a Bombers supporter, as you can see. Again, I've gone to a little bit of effort, just making these little scarves, setting it all up. It's taken a bit of my time, but luckily I'm on mid-year break, so I've had a bit of time to afford.
It's good. Staying productive.
Just mucking around.
Yeah,
mucking around, and that's how I get through. Sometimes you need to muck around.
You do, yeah.
So I'm just looking at the agenda here, and a usual suspect at the top of the agenda is an introduction. Who we are, what we want to achieve with the podcast. So I don't know. I've had a bit of I put this agenda together. You've had a look at it. Do you want to start off with that? Do you want to talk a little bit about why you, because just before you go ahead, I put a couple of minute-long little teaser things together before, pretending that me and you were on a podcast together, and then with
a fake champ,
with a fake champ, you reached out. You said, "Let's actually do a podcast." I'm like, "Yeah, I'm happy you did, because I really wanted to, but I didn't want to bother you with that."
Sure.
So I'm glad that you reached out. So why did you reach out, and what do you want to achieve with the pod?
I think give the Whoppers a bit of a laugh, and also I love to have a platform to go on rants.
No. Rants in.
Any chance to rip on Essendon supporters to a wider audience is always an opportunity. I'll grasp with both hands.
Okay, so that's the dynamic you're going to get here. It's going to be a bit of rough and tumble. Yeah, that's good. It's the sort of the dynamic we've cultivated on the Whoppers chat.
Yep.
I hope it translates to live.
Yeah.
I don't want to sort of shy away from confrontation now that we're face to face, because there's it's all well and good to be keyboard warrior.
I am the people's champ.
You are the people's champ. I'll bring that sting back. Just got to use the stings here. I think I'm using that term right. Sting.
Yeah.
Or stinger, or something like that. But yeah, you are the people's champ. You do have it's a good thing you're doing, satisfying your local community, and that's footy friends.
People.
You're good to your people. Why do I want to do it? I suppose I want to use the equipment that I've put time and effort into and money into. Any excuse will do, but I also like to have a platform to rant. I think it's good to muck around. So I'm happy to just play around here and do a podcast. Do it for an audience of 5 or 10 or however many people will enjoy it. But that's all I want to achieve. Bit of fun. have a little bit of a laugh.
All
And
work, no play makes Ned a dull boy.
yeah, duller than I probably am, because I don't do a lot of extracurricular activities. I like to chill out a lot. So I'm content just hanging out. Just this weekend I did 2 things on something on a Saturday, something on a Sunday, which is pretty rare for me. So yeah, I'd like to do a bit more of that. This is an example of that doing the pod. So yeah, that's all I want to do. And who we are, how do we know each other? Because you're friends with I'm friends with your brother.
Yeah.
So we go back ages.
Yeah, long way.
20 years or so.
Yeah.
It's coming up.
Yep.
Coming up on. And sort of over the last 10 or so years through the Whoppers chat have developed a kind of a rivalry to a degree.
Yep. Yeah.
Maybe reminiscent of the Bombers Hawks in the 80s.
Yeah.
Something like that.
Not a bad example.
Feisty, fierce.
Yep.
Stuff like that. And yeah, like I said, I think it's a dynamic, a decent dynamic that we've cultivated, and I hope it does translate in this sort of live environment here. We've got our agenda together. We've been through the introduction now.
Yep.
Now we're talking about the Whoppers chat, actually, segueing into that. I've got a few things coming up later on, actually, the Photoshop highlights.
Yeah.
That'll be pretty cool.
A few from Harvey in there, a couple of Hiltons.
There's a few few artistes among the crowd.
There is, yeah.
I used to be, probably one of the only ones being, a Photoshop user.
Yep.
But lately, or I should say, over the last 5 or so years,
all the kids are on it these days.
All the kids are doing it.
Yeah.
It's great. Seeing Tommy Hilton out there, Tommy Hilton doing his thing, seeing Sam Harvey doing his thing. So there's a few, OC generators.
Yeah.
Original content generators.
I do find it sometimes creepy that it's obvious some people have several hundred photos of me on their phone that they use for different scenes.
I'm always going to Sam Harvey's Facebook page, actually, because that's the photo that I use mostly. I can't remember whose wedding it was at, but it was you on it's a great background because it's a very flat background, easy to select your head. So I'm always using that one. Always going to Sam's. If he took that, if he took that down or whatever, if I couldn't access it, I wouldn't know.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't be able to do many Photoshops of you, unfortunately. Yeah. So what do you like and don't like about the chat? Because that's sort of I kind of feel like this podcast here is a bit like a production of that, or like I've put in the intro, presented by. Yeah. So it's a manifestation of.
It is, yeah.
So what do you that's something to like about, I guess?
I like the cricket discussion when that does occur during the warm months.
Okay.
A few Whoppers take sabbaticals actually during the cricket discussions.
Yeah, I like to mute. Well, it's always on mute for me, but there's a few of us tilds myself.
Yeah.
Okay, so you like it for a bit
of
cricket talk.
I like the blind optimism that all the Bomb Brays have every February and March, because I just know the higher you pump yourselves up, the harder you're going to crash. So I do enjoy that.
Yeah. It's hard to avoid. It's hard to avoid that. Little Heisenberg here. We'll get him back on camera. I'd be getting into it as well if I had access to a big bunch of Hawthorn supporters. Maybe during the three-peat, I would have made a fool of myself getting into it, because they were turning it over with actual conversions of premierships.
Yeah.
But I'm starting off bad, aren't I? Complimenting the Hawks. It shouldn't be how it's. Shouldn't usually.
You're supposed to be
like
salty.
I'm supposed to be
live
salty.
Up to the name.
I'm getting all the positivity out so I can get comfortable and then get salty.
Delve into a black
hole. That's what
later.
I need to. I'm not just going to come on hot, so I need to get need to get all that out.
Yeah,
and then get into a salty setup.
Yeah.
but yeah, if I had access to a bunch of opposition supporters, I'd take joy in that kind of thing as well.
And what club would you most like access to? Like, what's your
changes?
most hated club? Because you guys are strange. The only club Hawthorn supporters really hate is Essendon. And even else we don't really care about. But some of you hate Carlton, some of you hate Collingwood, some of you hate Hawthorn. You kind of
they're a big 3 or 4. They're the top 3. Essendon, you got Collingwood, Carlton, and Essendon. So there's always those rivalries. You can say a tri rivalry between the 3.
Mm-hmm.
But there was actually topical this recently. I'm not sure if you saw it. Someone did on Twitter, like the most hated, like polled members of each club.
Right.
Most hated. Should get that up.
Yeah.
If we had, this is perfect for some other dweeb to get to say, we need Jamie.
Edit it in later.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, good call. We'll edit that graphic in. But yeah, the graphic in question, most hated clubs, and obviously Collingwood featuring up the top there. Essendon like easily second.
Yeah.
Like safely second.
Yeah.
So yeah, big enough to be hated. Yeah, Hawthorn not as much, but definitely, I'd say probably Gen X, and you're sort of like cusp of Gen X, millennial, growing up in that 80s or post 80s sort of rivalry.
Yeah.
That's where I think the real animosity between Essendon and Hawthorn generationally sort of occurs.
I think a lot of it comes out of that that line in the sand game. Remember that?
In
It was
04.
like 04, was it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think 04. Yeah.
I think that relit a fire for a lot of people. Probably more so Essendon supporters, because like Hawthorn have been shit for a long time, right?
Well, that was
at that point.
Yeah, well,
So you're like, you don't really hate teams who are shit for like 10 years because, well, normal people don't. I do.
Sort of 14,
But,
yeah.
Yeah, because of whatever Hawthorn, we don't care. You guys just won a flag recently, and then then you were sort of on the downward spiral, and Dermy did the line in the sand, and was that the game when Lloyd ran through?
That was a few years after that.
Right.
Lloyd, and in case I'm just going to
Saul?
pop it on the intro again because it is the very first clip, and there it is.
Dirty bastard.
And I'll just put that back to my video now. Yeah, that was pretty dirty, but it's such a great bit of footage. Had to include it. Yeah, that was like 4 or 5 years later.
Right.
I was at that game with T. Hilton, and that, I think, if I'm not mistaken, that was to prevent Hawks from, who were the reigning premiers that year, getting back into the finals, and we did it.
Yeah,
that was a win for us.
So what was that?
Lordo's last game. What's that?
That must have been 09 then.
09. Yeah, it was 09. Yeah. 09. So 04. I was actually not that into the footy in the early 2000s when Essendon were good. The last time Essendon were good.
Yeah.
I remember the 2000 premiership, and the 93 premiership is one of my sort of foundational footy memories.
Yep.
But yeah, it unfortunately for me occurred in a period where I wasn't really that, I wasn't into it that much. Yeah. As it, had other things going on.
Yeah.
A young teen, all the stuff going on there. I worked at a pizza shop at like 13, 14. Those close to me know that. No, it's just a mate helping out a mate. And probably long enough ago that no criminations can be made.
Yeah,
so
statute of limitations.
It's all done on that. Expired. That's right. Yeah. So we can talk about that safely. But yeah, 2000 I wasn't super into it, but of course the grand final you got to watch it. My family was all into it, of course. And yeah, 04, the last finals win. Again, not really paying that much attention. So yeah, I did start paying attention sort of like around the end of Sheedy, the start of the new era.
Yep.
07, 08.
Yep. Because
it was like, sort of like, Hurdy's gone, Sheedy's gone. It's like, hang on. What's not that, just got like, because they've been around for ages, especially, Sheeds. It's just like a sort of an old picture on the wall kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Grew up with a couple of premierships. The premierships will always come. Lloydie, Hurdy and Sheeds are always going to be there. And yeah, when they both went the same year, it was like, oh, okay, new club basically.
Yeah.
So
What's going to happen next?
exactly,
Yeah.
what's going to happen next?
You're jumping on at the start of a new era.
A new era, and that
Yeah.
era was 15, 16 years of mediocrity,
Yeah.
peppered with, or not peppered with, but in the middle there, a nice
Riven with scandal.
scandal, which we'll get into. That's of course another thing on the agenda.
Yeah.
We'll get into that a bit later on. But yeah, that's sort of my interest in footy and the Bombers. Well, it goes back my entire life, but sort of resurrected, sort of came back around that era, 07, 08.
Yep.
And seen 6 or 7 coaches since then, 9 or so, 8 or 9, 7 or 8 finals appearances, for 7 or 8 finals losses. So that's the club you're dealing with here. That's the club I'm dealing with.
Recidivists.
I do love them. They what?
Recidivists.
Recidivists. I wouldn't say that to. Oh, the light's not picking up the red. That's not great. But I wouldn't say that to highs.
Yeah.
And so I suppose coinciding with a very. I'll bring it back to you now, champ. A very successful Hawthorn.
Yeah. A legacy era.
Starting in, and I actually watched. Shout out to a channel, I think called Jagger Skillbeck,
Right.
on YouTube, who does some good sort of recent history, AFL history videos.
Yep.
Shout out to the Whoppers listening. But yeah, about the Hawthorn 3-peat and the 08 win.
Yep.
But what was your experience of that?
2008. I was a reasonably hardcore supporter at that time. Like I wouldn't go to the footy that much. I might go 5 or 6 times a year, but I'd watch every week. And 08, I remember I was working in a pub at the time, a fairly large pub, and I had to work grand final day, and I wasn't starting till half time. So I was at a mate's house watching the footy, and then jumped in the car at half time to drive to work, and all the boys would come out and started jumping on the roof of the car saying, you piss weak, you're going to work, you're going to miss your team, watch your grand final. So I went to work, logged on and sat there and drank beers and watched the win and got paid, and that was good. It was great. Then we were shit we had like a premiership hangover, didn't we? I think we missed the finals year after.
That was the Sewell.
Oh, of course.
Auto game.
Yeah.
Couple of years while Geelong did their thing.
Yep.
And then back to action.
Yep.
13, 14, 15.
So we lost 12.
Yep. Against Sydney.
To Sydney. And then 13, 14, 15. So I went to 13 and 14.
Ooh.
I could have gone
Lucky
to
boy.
15, but I was doing martial arts at the time and had been booked for a fight in Griffith in New South Wales, in the middle of fucking nowhere. So I had to drive up, watch the game in the hotel room the day before, and then fight the next day. So I could have gone, but I missed it. I was spewing. Would have been good to say I went to all 3.
Fighting instead. Oh well.
And losing actually, yeah.
But winning the 3-peat.
Yeah.
So yeah, you got blessed with 4 premiership wins in your young adulthood.
Well, probably getting towards middle age there, but I was around for.
Well, how old were you in 08?
28.
28. So then sort of in the.
So when I was a kid, I had like 86, 88,
right, you
89,
remember those early ones as well.
91,
yes,
92.
So
92 West.
No, 91 was your last in that sort of era.
Yeah.
So so if you was a kid,
yeah,
and then
so
one
the
of
first
your
one
20s.
I really remember was 86, and that's probably when I jumped on the Hawthorn bandwagon.
So do you feel truly blessed as a Hawthorn supporter growing up in the 80s, 80s, 90s, 2000s, 2010s as an adult now, but do you feel sort of truly blessed?
Yeah, I've probably had
Hawks?
had a good premiership to age ratio.
You like them occurring then?
I do, yeah.
Because that's when you can really sort of celebrate them.
Yeah, and just like lord it over other people. They can't do anything because you're the reigning premier.
You're the reigning premier.
You can just bully people.
Sort of 3 years of that, 4 years of that. That going on. Like it's hard to sort of take. Like that's why I think I am very salty with Hawthorn. And that's why at this point in time, when Hawks really, it's actually kind of looking like they're coming good again. Unfortunately, you probably wouldn't know much about that, having turned your back on them. But
I'll just correct you there. I haven't turned my back on Hawthorn. I've turned my back on the AFL.
Oh, okay. We'll get into
but
that.
I have noticed like a vibe that Hawthorn is doing better than
a vibe
expected.
shift.
Yeah,
well, your old mate Sam Mitchell also featuring in the intro.
Probably one of my probably my favorite player from that era.
Well, like you can see why. Like because he was there. He was there for all three, wasn't he?
Yeah.
Captain for all three, or two of them,
maybe
or one of them. At least one of them.
Hodge was there. Hodge might have been captain for one of them, but yeah, he was captain for a while during that period. Yeah.
And you probably like him the most because of his gesture. The what he did to Cale Hooker, I think, was the
well, not just that, because he was
receiver.
like fairly hated by opposition supporters because he's a bit of a
dirty bastard of a player.
I think that's an unfair accusation. That's possibly slanderous.
Allegedly
but he was
dirty.
one of those players like supporters love because the opposition hates him so much. Like we've kind of got like Sicily in that space now, but back then Mitchell was probably more of like a smug. But really, really good player, and the opposition just hated him. So
a dirty bastard, as I said. Yeah,
that's your view.
Him and Cochin, two peas in a pod, really. And Job's rightfully won 2012. Brownlow couldn't have gone to two less deserving dudes, but that's a conversation for another podcast, I reckon. I reckon that we could spend a bit of time on the Brownlow.
Yeah.
But yeah, so if we're talking recent history in the AFL. You, in the last 20 years, you've had some pretty good times. Me and my friends, and obviously the Whoppers is largely Bombers. Not so good times. Pretty mediocre times.
Yeah. Like your club.
What's that?
Like your club. Mediocre.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's it. Like, and the saga, of course, and that's something that will... have I got this sequenced right? I've got the toxicity. Maybe that's probably a good thing that we can segue into.
Yeah.
We'll come back to some of that earlier stuff.
Yeah.
And you think that there is a certain toxicity particular to the Bombers.
Yeah, which I think goes hand in hand with the fact that you've suffered as a club and as a supporter base for 20 years.
Coming up on.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
September 4th, I believe, is the 20th anniversary.
Well, you've got that marked in your diary, haven't you?
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, but, you know,
sad.
it's... I love looking at, like, the Facebook comment section under an Essendon post after a loss. It's just, like, it's so much fun.
Yeah.
And, like,
Yeah,
I'll tag my mates who also, like, hate Essendon, and then other Essendon supporters' mates will see that tag, and then we just set them right off.
Yeah, I've been on the receiving end of a few of those.
There's that, like... Another sort of thing is like the Bombray fans' general hatred of everything that is not Essendon.
Yeah. Yeah,
like
well...
You're rarely happy for other clubs having success, like always hating by default certain players and certain clubs with a passion that like I don't see in other supporter bases.
I think an us against them mentality is crucial to success in competitive sports.
Well, for the sports players, yeah, not necessarily the supporters, I wouldn't have thought. Well,
I think if you're, you sort of take that sort of, one in all in kind of approach, like you get into the same frame of mind as the players. How do you sort of feel, or how do you try to become more of the, or have more of the experience through that kind of, I am with these players on this.
Yeah,
I will do what they do. I can do what they do. But
then you're living vicariously through the players, so then your happiness is attached to their success.
Well, that's
thereof.
Correct.
Yeah.
Well, that's correct. But the thing is, you live by the sword, you die by the sword.
That's right.
So you have to be committed. And that's what I find so fascinating about a supporter like yourself. Is that you were sort of on the bandwagon in 08, 13, 14, 15. And then recently you've sort of, turned, as I said before, turned your back on the club. That's sort of...
Again, I'll correct you there, not the club.
All right.
The league.
The league,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Of which the club is a part.
Yes.
So,
yeah.
ipso facto,
Yeah,
You've
sure,
turned your back on the
sure,
club.
Sure.
Which I find heinous in a lot of ways. As you said before, you were blessed growing up in your early, as a young adult as well. This awesome, successful club that's given you all these like happy times. Just because things are not going right, you've sort of thought, "No, I'm done with you." So,
No,
so
it's
what's
not true. Like I stuck with this when we nearly got merged with Melbourne.
Okay,
Right? So we sucked hard for 15 years.
Right.
After the 91 flag, and then started to pick
90s,
up again.
the bad
through
90s.
the 90s. Yeah,
Right.
yeah, the early 2000s we sucked. Right. I stuck fat,
Mm-hmm.
but I still liked the game back then. But now it's not the game I grew up with. It's
So what changed?
and we can probably get into we can get into
Well, that's a conversation for later.
yeah
A more detailed conversation.
But basically, the AFL as an organisation just disgusts me. And it's not only that, it's like all like footy used to be a Friday night game, some Saturday games, couple of Sunday day games, and then it would kind of fade away during the week. But now it's just like SEN 24/7 footy. It's in the paper all the time and never stops. They dominate the media cycle like 11 months of the year. Right? You just can't get away from it. After a while, it's like it's too much. You know what I mean?
Sure.
I kind of got burnt out on it.
Yeah. Okay. So that's despite the fact that you've seen all this like success, all this as I said before, like good times. You're not willing to sort of put up with that for this club. Because if to be quite frank, it's the only league we've got. If you're not watching
that's not true. There's like there's local footy.
Okay,
country footy,
sure.
Not that I bother myself with that. Because,
I should rephrase. That is not true.
It's the peak
league. It's the peak league. It's the
Yeah.
only league
Yeah.
that you can see that team
Yeah.
that gave you so many good times. Even so, still can't be dealing with it.
I'm not like your typical Bombay fan who needs to live vicariously through football. I can
Okay,
You've
already done that. You've already had those good times.
Yeah, I had the good times, and then
They've
now the
given
game's the game's faded into a corporate sewer. And when we come good again, and we'll win a flag before you guys do, I'll still have the same attitude. I'm not going to jump back on the bandwagon then. And I'll probably
You'll be back on it.
probably ironically just to like wind you guys up, but I'm not going to be going to games and stick a wig posters in my front window and hanging scarves out the window of the car, right? Like,
Right.
Yeah.
Too nuffy for you.
Yeah.
Do you? Okay, so I think that might have been the first time we've dropped that word, nuffy. The actually no, definitely said it earlier. But going back to it, what's your opinion on nuffies? Because nuffyism, maybe it's just been coined recently, but is that something else that you've noticed?
No, there's always been nuffies.
Always been nuffies, yeah. So it's only a term that's been coined recently, but it is a historical.
Yeah. And I'll give you an example.
character.
And like one of the other things that I do like about the Bombrays chat is the Bulby fashion discussions.
Okay.
And in particular
Yes.
the duffel coats.
I should have
which
had
is a
some pictures
throwback.
lined up here.
That's a throwback to the 80s, right?
Yes.
And
yes.
some people might say, what grown man walks around with a duffel coat covered in footy badges?
Sure.
Right? And the answer to that is Bulby. But it's also like, but see, he's a good nuffy. Right?
Yes.
Because he's
Yeah.
a fairly generally a fairly positive nuffy.
Right.
But then you have these people who are like just miserable, toxic bastards who are just like, ring up SEN at 3:00 in the morning and
His heads.
start. Or they've just got nothing else to do. That's like your nuffy who is perhaps a little too attached to footy, perhaps in like an unhealthy way.
Right. Yeah. And that's certainly. Don't want to joke about it.
Yeah.
Can't make light of it. But people do take it way too seriously.
Yeah.
And
Or like the sort of the over opinionated, undereducated, like the kind of people who go to a game and shout ball every 5 seconds, right?
Yeah. You get a lot of that.
Yeah.
You get a lot of that.
Yeah.
So when was the last time you went to a game? A few days ago for me. Was it
It'd be.
Docklands on Sunday?
I went with my brother and his 2 kids to watch Hawthorn get flogged by Geelong about 2 or 3 years ago. That would be the last time I went. Yeah.
So it's sort of just post-COVID era.
Probably. Yeah.
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 Crowds opening back up.
Yeah.
Right on.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, so that's like, and that's average. Like maybe you go once every 3 years these days.
Yeah, I used to go to like Friday night games in the city to just meet mates for a few beers after work, but
Yeah.
like it's such an expensive proposition now, right? Like you go to the footy and pay, I don't know, what is it now, like $12 for a mid strength, rather than just go to the pub and catch up with people. It was more of like a social thing. Even when like Hawthorn were like right up the top, I was an AFL member at that point, and I would go to more non-Hawthorn games than Hawthorn games because not many of my mates follow Hawthorn, and I would rarely go by myself because it's like we would find it like sort of boring.
Yeah.
But I would have like, you know, Bombray mates say, "Hey, do you want to go watch your Bombrays?" Be like, yeah, sure.
Working in the city has a big impact, doesn't it?
Yeah, because I could knock off work.
Yeah.
And at that point, you could just scan in your AFL card at MCG or Docklands.
Yeah,
whereas now I think you have to like book a ticket.
Right.
And they fleece you for like a $2 booking
So it's
fee.
not like a come
yeah, it
as
just
you
used
are.
to be like swiping a Mikey and getting on the train.
Yeah, no,
and it was like, it was
easy
great.
as,
Yeah.
I in this period of mediocrity, I have on occasion been a club member. I started in 2009. Was my first membership, and that was I think a gold membership. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but it was a reserve seat every home game, and it was just behind, or maybe just in front of, the Hilton family, which have essentially been my ticket for the last like 5-10 years. Whenever, and that was where that was how I went to the most recent game. But yeah, I think they've got 5 tickets and 5 seats in a row, so they want to hold on to them. And not all can't get the whole clan together all the time, so often there are spare spots. And I'm often the beneficiary of those, a couple of times a year at least. And went just recently. But other than that, had 1 or 2 of my own memberships that I think 2009, maybe 2012 was another one. I would try and remember by the scarves that I've got, but living in a couple of share houses, I've picked up a few scarves from other periods,
which is a pain in the ass, right? Like, because I was the same when I was an AFL member. You get like another Hawthorn scarf in the mail every year. It's like, why can't you like rotate? Give me a hat one year, then a beanie, then like a scarf, and then like, I don't know, a pair of socks or something. Like,
scarf's gonna last for a while anyway. So,
after a while, you end up with like 15 scarves. Like, what am I going to do with these?
Yeah. Like, especially if you've got like 5 memberships in the family, getting 5 scarves a year.
Yeah.
Crazy. Can't be dealing with that. So shout out to the Hiltons, an Essendon, a true Essendon family. One of the pillars of.
Yeah. Sometimes a little too close to the players though.
Yeah, sure. Sure.
Like, didn't Tom harass one of the players at a restaurant one night? Is that
Joe Danaher?
Joe Danaher.
Joe Danaher.
Is that why he left?
Maybe we should get Tom on to sort of plead his case on that one.
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to sort of speculate.
I'm happy to speculate.
Okay, you could speculate, but I don't want to speak for him.
Sure.
Yeah, but look, I think certainly wouldn't be something I'd be doing. Harassing players.
Yeah, I like to respect people's personal space and their privacy, and
okay, cool. Well, one thing I want to point out, discussing our respective clubs, and we did, sort of broach the topic of toxicity. Just coming back to the agenda here. Actually, you know what I'll do? Do you want to we'll take a pause there? Cut it. Just press spacebar.
Unfortunately, Salvan and the People's Champ forgot to sign off. So the responsibility falls to me, Miguel. Thank you for tuning in today, and thanks to each of you for being a member of the Hot Whoppers community. You can contact the podcast at saltyandthechamp@gmail.com. Salty was dressed by Kmart. Champ was dressed by Gasman. Music Lust was written and performed by Senivers, of Silverman Sound Studios. That is it for now. Don't forget to tune in again next week for our second episode. I love you, goodbye.